I'm Morgan from the very unofficial travel guides, and this is the Prague Castle. As my mom, that's her, just mentioned, that behind me is actually a cathedral, but it's part of the Prague Castle. If you want to know what makes the Prague Castle and Cathedral so special, then just listen to the soothing sounds of my voice as I show you these amazing videos I made.
The Prague Castle is the largest ancient castle
in the world.
Think more like neighborhood surrounded by walls than Cinderella's castle. You can take tram number 22 or 91 up the hill to stop Courtyard, and it's just a short walk across the street to one of the main entrances, which is guarded by these famous statue-like guards. We entered the grounds into what's called the second courtyard and bought our tickets there at a small shop to the right of this picture.
If you want to visit the grounds, then you don't need a ticket. You can just come up and sort of walk around, but if you want to go into any of the buildings, like the cathedral or the palace or those things, then you need to buy a ticket. And there's several different plans. We bought Plan B, or Circuit B is what it's called. It costs 250 crowns, and that's good for 1, 2, 3, 4, probably the 4 most popular buildings.
We saved the best for first and went into St. Vitus Cathedral, which reminded me quite a bit of the Dome in Cologne, Germany, but brighter and more colorful. Construction began way back in 1344 and was basically completed around 1930.
This is really cool, really worth coming in to look at.
Inside, you'll find the tombs of St. John of Nepomuk and his magical tongue, Google it, as well as good King Wenceslas of Christmas Carol fame.
If I could think of one word to describe this, it would be cavernous.
This was by far the most impressive sight on our tour, and if I were you, I would save this for last and not first. Next up, we went to the Old Royal Palace, which dates back to the 12th century. I'm glad we checked it out, but you kind of have to be a huge history buff to really find it interesting because it's mostly empty. The most interesting site that's still accessible to the public is the gigantic Vladislav Hall, which is where the first-year students get to wear the sorting hat and figure out if they'll end up in Gryffindor or Slytherin. Be sure to check out the multi-layered model of the different versions of the palace over the years, which gives you a good idea of how it's grown and what it used to be like. And find your way outside for some awesome views of the city. Oh, and one more highlight inside are the jewels.
That's the family jewels back there.
Actually, those are just replicas, but the real ones are supposed to be hidden close by. Around the corner from there is something else really old, and no, I'm not talking about Betty White. It's St. George's Basilica, which dates back to 920. Oh no, not 1920, 920. Like, the people who went to church there probably still had dinosaurs as pets. The space is still used for concerts and special events, and it has its own collection of creepy old things like this dazzling display of someone's remnants, over which I could find absolutely no information. If you know what it is, write it in the comments below. Moving on, we made our way up the street to the famous Golden Lane, which is a quaint street displaying what life was like back in the 15th century, as well as showcasing various suits of armor, weapons, and torture devices. Fun for the whole family. Let's take a look inside. I don't know if these were replicas or actual restored suits of armor that were used at some point in time, but it's pretty cool to look at all the different sizes and shapes and imagine wearing something like this into battle. Well, actually, that's not cool at all, but you know what I mean.
So there's all kinds of things for killing and maiming in here, and things to protect yourself from being killed or maimed, especially the most important parts.
One thing I noticed about the houses is people must have been really small back then because the dwellings were tiny compared to what we think is normal by today's standards, so I'd feel right at home. And they didn't even have a Starbucks.
Walking back down the hill now after being up at the Prague Castle. Definitely worth a visit, definitely worth planning a few hours there. I mean, you need to plan a few hours there. And now we're gonna walk back down the hill and try to find the Charles Bridge. That's the way to do it, apparently. I'm Morgan from the very unofficial travel guides. If you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe and you'll get updated, and check out other videos in my library. You can follow me on Facebook at Morgan's Very Unofficial Travel Guides and on Twitter at Mr. Morgan O'Brien. I will see you later.